Loki is a charming villain from the Marvel Cinematic Universe who has even more fans than Thor, his brother, and the main character of several movies. It happened mainly because of the skillful acting of Tom Hiddleston. Fans fell in love with the god of cunning and deception he played, so he got his own series. The story of Loki and Thor sparked interest in Norse mythology. It's not that you can see gods among superheroes every day. The fans scrutinized the myths and found a lot of inconsistencies. The on-screen Loki has nothing to do with his mythological version. Today, we'll try to find out what they have in common, what the composer Richard Wagner has to do with all this, and why everyone is so obsessed with Loki. If you like our video breakdowns, give us a thumbs up and share this video with your friends. The main sources telling us about Norse gods are the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda. We know the author of the Prose Edda, the Icelandic poet Snorri Sturluson, wrote it in the 13th century. However, the story of the Poetic Edda is not that simple. One of its first copies is believed to have been found in the middle of the 18th century by the Lutheran bishop Brynjolfur Sveinsson in church archives. He attributed the manuscript to Sæmundur Froði, an Icelandic priest and scholar. But this version wasn't confirmed, so we don't know who wrote the songs that were included in the Poetic Edda. The Prose Edda, or Snorri's Edda, is a textbook of pagan poetry that tells stories about the entire pantheon of Norse gods without any religious content. Snorri thought that the gods were once glorious people, but later folk tales attributed special powers to them. They were not almighty gods typical for the monotheistic religions. Norse gods can be compared with the Greek ones. They look like people and have the same traits and vices. According to legends, the Aesir, the main gods, live in the city of Asgard. There is one supreme god, Odin, who is usually called the Father of All, or All-Father. He is one of the sons of the giantess Bestla and Bor, son of Buri. Odin gave one eye to get a chance to drink from the spring of knowledge and wisdom. According to the Prose Edda, besides Odin, there are 11 gods and 14 goddesses in Asgard. One of them is Thor, Odin's eldest son. He has a lot of strength even for an Aesir. He often fights giant Jotnar and eats a whole bull for lunch. Odin is the ruler of Valhalla, the hall of the fallen warriors in Asgard. Those valiant warriors who die in battle find their way to Valhalla. But Norse gods are not immortal. For example, Baldur, the god of light and spring, died because of Loki. Norse gods are unique because they are still mortal, and it makes them even more human, and Loki is one of them. In the Marvel Universe, Loki is Odin's adopted son and Thor's half-brother. But in the myths, the situation is different. He is the son of a Jotun, but the Aesir allowed him to live in Asgard for his sharp mind. Loki is the god of cunning, deceit, and guile. He is a typical trickster, a mythological archetype, a character that always breaks the rules. That is true for Loki. He is duplicitous, quirky, and witty. In the song Lokasana, Loki openly blames the gods for being cowards and the goddesses for debauchery. He also admits that he is the one responsible for Baldur's death. Baldur was also referred to as kind. He was not like the other gods. They were always fighting and killing, and compared to them, Baldur seemed harmless. Everyone loved Baldur and wanted to protect him from danger. His mother made every living being swear not to harm him. But she missed the mistletoe sprout because it seemed too small and harmless. When Loki found out about this, he coerced the blind god Hother to throw a mistletoe dart at Baldur, and he died. Baldur's death triggered Ragnarok, the Scandinavian version of the end of the world. Myths and legends can be even more twisted and violent than Game of Thrones. If you like a good plot twist, check out our course, The History of Cinema. The link is in the description box. But other gods loved Loki, so he got away with it. Despite all his tricks, the Aesir asked Loki for help whenever they needed cunning and ingenuity, which brave warriors lacked. Loki got them valuable artifacts, the hammer Mjolnir for Thor and the spear Gungnir for Odin. But Loki's main personality trait is that he doesn't mind crossing the line, as if there are no rules at all. He changes his appearance and turns into women or animals. When he was a mare, he gave birth to the eight-legged horse Sleipnir, ridden by Odin. As a result, the Aesir lost its patience. Like in the Avengers, they punished Loki by imprisoning him. Obviously, he is not locked in a cage on the helicarrier. The myth is way more ruthless. Loki was tied up with his son's intestines, and a poisonous snake was hung in front of him. The poison was getting on Loki's face, causing him to convulse. That's how Scandinavian mythology explains earthquakes. Marvel turned Loki into one of the most recognizable villains, but made significant changes to his mythological nature. He is no longer a red-haired trickster, but a stylish, dark-haired man. His actions are explained not by his desire to ruffle everyone. On the contrary, he is obsessed with the thirst for power and envies Thor, his brother, in the Marvel Universe. In Marvel's Asgard, physical strength and courage in battle are praised above everything else, and Thor always outshines Loki. Ingenuity and cunning are replaced by blatant lies and desire to take revenge. Loki dreams of the Asgard throne, while his mythological counterpart never sought power. In the movies, we see the confrontation between the strong, valiant, but naive Thor and the cunning, yet evil Loki. Perhaps that is why so many people adore this anti-hero. The image of a strong, kind man is somewhat outdated and superficial. At the same time, Marvel Studios preserved one of Loki's most intriguing features, but upgraded it to fit our times. Remember that the mythological Loki could transform into women and animals? In the miniseries Loki, the audience gets to see different versions of the character, including his female version and the alligator Loki, Croaky Loki. The character is gender fluid. It means that Loki's identity is not fixed. A gender-fluid person does not associate themselves with the male or female sex, and their identity can change over time. We have rarely seen such people in movies before. But it is all changing now. For example, there are heated discussions about gender-fluid fashion, which doesn't divide clothes into men's and women's. Loki appeared just in time to become a cultural trend, and this contributed to his popularity and huge fandom. Tom Hiddleston knew that his character showed the experience of gender-fluid people and respected that part of his performance. What Marvel's Loki has in common with his counterpart from the Eddas is the eschatological mood. Eschatology is the idea of the imminent end of the world, one of the integral features of Scandinavian mythology. It presents history as a straight line, from the beginning of the world to its inevitable end. The gods of Asgard live in anticipation of Ragnarok. According to the legends, at the beginning of time, the gods harnessed monsters, but eventually they will break free. The wolf Fenrir will kill Odin, and Fenrir's children will devour the sun and moon. The world's serpent Jormungandr will rise from the depths of the ocean, and the seas will overflow the shores. The giants will set sail through the flood on the Naglfar boat, made from the fingernails and toenails of the dead. Loki will break free and lead the army of giants. The gods will perish, and there is no way to avoid it. In both Marvel movies and mythology, Loki plays an important role in the end of the world. In the myths, he triggers Ragnarok by killing Balder. In the movies, Loki resurrects the demon Surtur, who destroys Asgard. By the way, the female version of Loki from the series, Sylvie, is also related to the end of the world. She hides from the organization that tries to kill her in the predicted apocalypses. The idea of the death of gods was picked up by many cultures, especially the German one. In the late 19th century, composer Richard Wagner wrote the opera Twilight of the Gods. It completes the cycle The Ring of the Nibelung, based on the Poetic Edda. Wagner played an important role in the formation of the Third Reich, so the decline of the Nazi regime was called the Twilight of the Gods. The same title was attributed to the downfall of any authoritarian regime. It's safe to say that Loki is, in some way, involved in the overthrow of dictators. Do you like Loki? Which version of Loki do you find most interesting? The one from the myths or from the Marvel movies? Share in the comments. Many Marvel characters were inspired by mythology. Learn more about myth-inspired characters in our course, The History of Cinema. The link is in the description box.